Hey, Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, we revisit the debate over reopening the state's economy and what it will take to do that. A UK economist talks about COVID-19's impact, and basketball's one and done era might not end anytime soon. All that and more is next on Hey, Kentucky. Welcome to Hey Kentucky, along with LEX 18 Sports Director Keith Farmer. And Keith, the breaking news today that we have learned, not surprisingly, there will be no more in-person schooling for K through 12 kids.
I think you and I both agreed it'd probably be a good idea not to go back to a classroom at the end of this season. But here's what worries me now. I guess that means high school sports officially done now at this point, maybe even including the Sweet 16s.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think we have to say that now at this point.
I was holding out hope.
All right. Well, speaking of hope, Keith, let's begin with the latest on efforts to reopen Kentucky's economy during the coronavirus era. State leaders say we still have some ground to cover before it happens, but a series of benchmarks have now been laid out. The most important among them, a downward slope in the number of cases for more than 14 straight days. Also on the list, increased testing capacity and contact tracing, the availability of PPE, the ability to protect at-risk populations, and the status of a vaccine and treatment.
I know we all target a May 1 date that sort of got put out there. We're going to work real hard with all the healthcare community and others to try to make sure we can start to do phase steps as soon as are reasonably safe. But remember, we're going to have to keep looking for that rate of new cases to determine when we get to that first stage gate, that first benchmark, when it is reasonable to start taking some of those steps.
Without a vaccine or a proven significant treatment, as we are able to reopen things, then yes, it's going to require something that's going to look a lot different.
Governor Beshear also says it appears Kentucky has attained the goal of flattening the curve, but reminds us that a sustained downward slope is needed to open things up. Doctors agree the rate of new COVID-19 cases, when averaged over 7 days, seems to have leveled off. But Keith, yesterday came the announcement of the largest number of positive tests that the state has seen. So while that could mean there is more testing being done, it still leaves me a little skeptical that May 1st is going to happen. Anything is going to happen.
Well, exactly. And on top of that, they're doing more testing. So they're probably going to continue to find more cases. And so that's what worries me about that May 1st date.
Yeah, I just can't see it happening because we still have to get more testing in. And like you said, that will likely mean more cases.
Exactly. And you know, then all of a sudden now we're pushing down to mid-May and maybe end of May. So we got to wait and see what these doctors say.
All right. Well, state leaders are calling out social media critics who paint a target on Governor Beshear for his refusal to lift COVID-19 restrictions. A Facebook post in the Boone County neighborhood group talks about the governor violating constitutional rights, including those to practice religion and stage peaceful protests. It ends with the quote, "The Constitution protects us and gives us the authority to eliminate him by any means necessary via the Second Amendment." Office holders across the state, many from the GOP, took to social media to denounce the apparent threat of violence. Of course, Beshear isn't the only governor facing pressure to reopen his state, but constitutional law experts say leaders across the country are acting within the bounds of the law in most cases. And Keith, the governor is not telling us we can't practice freedom of religion, we can't peacefully protest. We're just being asked to do it in a way that won't potentially infect other people.
Which in that way means don't have mass gatherings. And so if you're going to protest, do it 6 feet apart. Don't just gather in one spot on a lawn. And like we've talked about all along during this process, you can go to your church. Just do it online. Don't go into a building with a bunch of people where you put that problem and that possibility of getting COVID-19.
And listen, let's just not make death threats because no governor in America created COVID-19 to shut down economies and ruin the lives of people. Like I just think that is insane.
And as far as I know, all Republican and Democrat governors have done this. So, I mean, there is no agenda there. It's keeping us safe. That's all they're doing.
Correct. All right, now a follow-up on the battle to keep Kentucky churches from holding those in-person services. On Saturday night, a federal judge denied the request from a Bullitt County church for a restraining order to block enforcement of the governor's order about faith-based mass gatherings. The next day, Maryville Baptist was open to the congregation once again, but no state troopers showed up outside to issue notices. And there were other things that looked different than on Easter Sunday. There were fewer cars in the parking lot, and cones were put in every other parking space to enforce distancing. Pastor Jack Roberts says inside the rules are being followed.
Government's never satisfied.
You think you'll ever close the doors and just to satisfy everyone, just hold drive-in service?
Wouldn't satisfy me. I don't ask people to come in. Folks that were outside today, I didn't ask them, get out of your car, come in. Folks that were home today watching, I didn't ask them, come on over to church. The doors are open if folks want to come in.
Meanwhile, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron has gone to court in support of a Louisville church's federal lawsuit against the city over its right to hold drive-in church services. And Keith, that's more of a Louisville thing. Bashir backed off on that, but that's kind of Mayor Greg Fisher has talked about that.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of have to back Daniel Cameron here because I think what's a drive-in service going to do as long as everybody stays in the cars? I don't think it's a big issue. And you're right, it has been all Louisville and Mayor Fisher. Yeah,
and to me, I'm with you on that one. Let's drive in because there's lines out the wazoo at Lowe's. So
exactly.
We can all drive into the church. All right. With many people hurting from the shutdowns, LEX 18 and the Scripps Howard Foundation are teaming with God's Pantry Food Bank for the Hope Over Hunger project. If you need help or would like to support the cause, just go to lex18.com/hope. And if you own or manage a business or restaurant that's adapting to a new way of serving customers, we would like to share your story. Just head to lex18.com/open. You can submit your business there or find links to see restaurants and businesses that are open during the crisis. Turning to basketball, it seems that reports of the Oneanddonne's death were greatly exaggerated. Since 2006, the NBA has been refusing to accept players who are not at least 1 year removed from high school. As True Blue fans know all too well, Coach Cal has used this rule to his advantage, while many other college coaches cannot say the same. In recent years, it seemed like those looking to have the age restriction lifted were making progress, with expectations that high schoolers could jump straight to the NBA as soon as 2022. But now we've learned that the one and done rule will not likely be up for discussion until the next collective bargaining agreement negotiation in 2025. And Keith, I guess maybe that's because there are bigger things to worry about right now, but I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it. I'm just surprised. I've heard so many of the former NBA players that say guys should be able to go on and make their living if that's what they want to do. So it surprised me a little bit. All I know is now we do have a chance at seeing Imani Bates in a UK uniform, and that excites me.
There you go. As long as we've got the positive spin here for sure. Now in Hey Kentucky, in case you missed it, a review of recent headlines. An inmate from the Green River Correctional Complex has become the first coronavirus-related death among incarcerated people in Kentucky. The 49-year-old man was admitted to the hospital on April 8th, tested positive the following day, and passed away on Friday. The mother of former Wildcat Carl Anthony Towns is being honored in the wake of her COVID-19 death. The Minnesota Timberwolves, the Mayo Clinic, and Towns have teamed up on a fund in the name of Jacqueline Cruz Towns, which will be used to research a vaccine. And the Marshall County Judge Executive has ordered the removal of a Confederate flag outside the courthouse that has drawn criticism since its recent placement there. Kevin Neal says the intent in displaying the flag wasn't to offend anyone, and he will let the fiscal court determine the proper location. Up next on Hey Kentucky, we'll revisit the concerns about the economic effects of this pandemic. I'll talk with UK economist Michael Clark right after this.